So, I had some thoughts about the subject of intimacy. And, I've had a lot of experiences in my life that have kind of shaped my perception of what other people are, at least the people that I've interacted with, like some of the issues that arose in friendships and in romantic relationships. Because I'm naturally like a very open person, and I'm very naturally quick to form sort of deeper bonds with people. So often when I was a kid, when I had a new friend, we'd get very close very quickly because I was able to I don't know, I think I have like an element of non-judgmentalness that is disarming to most people. Now, in the beginning, it's usually very welcome, like, oh, like somebody understands me. This is like somebody that I can open up to. And so for a while, that usually works until, the people that I'm with suddenly realize, at least this is sort of my speculation, is that they realize like that they want to be fake again, because they're more used to, like their habit is that they get certain gratifications, in the world, which they've equivalated to the necessity of putting on a mask. And so, after a while, like my presence becomes unpleasant, to them, because I sort of like, I don't really like, bullshit, and I don't really like playing along with fakeness. And so like when people want to go into like some illusion in order to go for some experience that they won't allow themselves to have unless they conjure up some illusion and pretend to be a certain way, then they won't, then they, like in their mind, they've decided that they can't get that. It's like, yeah, I like hanging out with you, and we connect on a deep level, but what I really want to do is sort of like be fakey with these people, and you make that more difficult, so like I'm gonna start sort of being passive aggressive toward you, and sort of like not so subtly dismissing you and out of my life, and just kind of like sending you the message that you're not really all that welcome, because like I can't really be my fake self around these people and you, because you know me on a different level, and I want to be like superficial with these people, and I sort of, for whatever reason, they value that higher, and I can't really like, can I judge them for needing to go that route? I don't really. I mean, it does it is a painful experience, because feels a bit like, it's like a betrayal, and like the message is sent that like somehow, that I'm not good enough, or that something is icky about me. And and so like that, but that was like the icky feeling that I got back then was before I really sort of like caught on to this more recently, like, oh, like why was it that these relationships sort of turned out the way they did. It's sort of because I sort of represented something to them that they didn't really want to share with other people, because I made it more difficult for them to mask, essentially, because I'm not necessarily I have my own masks, but it's my natural trend is to sort of just for greater authenticity, greater self understanding, self realization, and sort of a I guess what some people would call like a radical acceptance of self, whether that's myself or the self that I would that we would associate with somebody else outside of myself. But fundamentally, my philosophy is sort of that essentially the self is somewhat universal and sort of shines through all of us. But that, and so like I think over the years in my different relationships, I sort of learned kind of the wrong lesson. The lesson that everyone else is, like in order to be social, they are learning how to interact with people on the superficial level, and they like somehow like they're more naturally able and capable of comfortably wearing masks. And it's like, and masks are sort of important, and I'm sort of realizing that in a less begrudging way. And I've sort of made a video about the veil, and that's another subject that I could go into. But I sort of learned the wrong lessons from these relationships, that I thought the problem was me not really being able to have a persona that was well suited for like going smoothly in between interactions, which now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm sort of split in my mind, because there's like, yes, learning how to be more fluid in the persona is something that by learning it, I think it's made me less concerned about like authenticity, because I'm realizing that I can be authentic while shifting personas that don't disclose things about myself prematurely that would make would put me in jeopardy, or would sort of like put somebody around me in jeopardy. But the more sort of like thing that I'm trying to like get at in this video is that intimacy, it's it's a two-way street. It's like you can only be intimate with people who are willing to be themselves, and people who are uncomfortable being themselves, they're going to have a hard time accepting anyone else, because in their mind they're always guarding against their shadow, essentially, fundamentally, the Jungian shadow, because they don't really want to see that part of themselves so clearly. And so what I'm realizing now as I'm more mature and older, that I do enjoy, like, sort of like, I like the veil because it allows me to study people and interact with people more comfortably. And like learning to have a strong persona allows me to get social interactions and get something out of interactions where I'm really just, my point is not to really get closer to these people, but I'm getting to know myself better because I can, study people more up close by interacting with them, using a more, a persona, a more veiled version of myself. That it's not like inauthentic, it's just not, like full disclosure, essentially. And that allows me to like sort of see what people are really like, because I'm very interested in what are people really like. And like I'm sort of hungry as someone who's like very interested in psychology and sociology, philosophy, all these things. I like to really study people and understand them better, and to not like judge them based on my sort of values about authenticity, but just like, okay, well, what is it that they're gaining out of this kind of behavior? But then that is one thing, but then like for my intimate relationships, there is no mask that I want to wear. It's like once I make the choice that this is going to be if I'm going to spend a lot of time with you, like I want to remove the persona more and more. I want to become more comfortable, that I can comfortably be myself around you. And I'm not gonna attract that so much if I don't have, if there's things that I am uncomfortable looking at about myself. If there's things that I'm sort of like semi-concealing for myself that I haven't really fully decided, okay, this is sort of like what my value is here. This is sort of like what my lifestyle is. This is, who I want to be. It's not, and then to like try to build some compartment to like keep that from someone who I'm both like trying to be intimate with, and also like kind of keep away from me at the same time. That's not gonna work. It's not gonna work long term in an intimate relationship. So like intimacy is fundamentally, I think a lot of people have a challenge with intimacy because they haven't fully decided to be okay with themselves. I recently made a video about, it was kind of like a joke about, like God told the guy to go eat his boogers, and then, he eats the boogers, and now he's like feels ashamed of himself. So, like sort of like what I was trying to say underneath, the humor of that is, sometimes like we just kind of have to like make peace with the uglier, the things that we've decided about ourselves that are kind of like not particularly flattering, that is, there's no getting away from it. There's no getting away from what you really are, and there's some things that we choose to include in ourselves, that are very going to be, that are going to be challenging for other people, but they sort of, if you want to be intimate with them, they kind of have to know, what that is. They have to know and understand, well, this is, who I'm getting. This is the person that I'm with. If I want to be with them, then that means sort of understanding that this is, who they are. And, we can't really do that. We can't really take that away from them. We can't take away their choice to reject us, in a relationship. That's sort of like, one of, I think I've talked about this before too, like my fear of rejection is not so much like going up to someone and like, making a proposal to them, for whatever, kind of relationship that I'm looking for, and then them saying, no, I don't want to do that. The rejection that, I've been afraid of, I think, in my life is more about like, okay, like now I get to know them, now they get to know me, are they going to be comfortable with like me in the various, shapes and forms that I take, throughout the various, stages of, whatever stage, wherever my emotions are, on a particular day, or, whatever, is involved in my life that is sort of like inconvenient to like kind of explain, in ways that would seem, like broadly socially accepted. So, because it's like, I think most of us, there's things about our lives and things about ourselves that are very like humiliating, and there's a lot of shame around them. And so like, even, it's like we all want to be closer and we want more intimate relationships, but there's ways in which, we haven't really fully like admitted to ourselves like who we really are. So that sort of stands in between, getting closer to other people. And so I'm sort of learning what it really means to be intimate by being more honest, myself. I've always had a trend towards honesty, but there's, as we grow up, we learn a lot of wrong lessons, and the world kind of teaches us to be fake, false, and then we wonder, well, it's like, why do people have fear intimacy? Well, it's because they're fundamentally like told that there are things about you that the world just will not accept if they understood, if they like knew about it. So like, even when you really get to know someone, it's like, but can I really like honestly expect that this person will understand? And so, yeah, I guess, like my point is that, it's like, it's sort of like up to the other, people that we invite into our lives, whether or not, they're going to be okay with the person that we really are. All we can really do is just present ourselves as authentic as possible when we reach that stage with someone. And so, like, intimacy begins within ourselves and sort of being okay with who we are. And, that's easy to say. It's very scary because there's so many layers in most of us of, just trauma and fear and, fear of rejection, fear of being alone, that we like make so many compromises. But in making these compromises, there's no real hope of achieving what we want, if what we want is intimacy, because we're not bringing, the truth into our own awareness, and we're like not allowing other people to make their own choices about whether or not, the real me is, what they are interested in. And so, like that's kind of like the fear of rejection, I think, that I've often like, like where I've thought way too much about, like, well, where's this relationship going to go? How am I going to manage these people, once they get to know me too much? How am I going to make them comfortable? It's like, well, yeah, I can't really make them comfortable. I just kind of like need to be myself and be okay with them sort of walking away if that's not enough. Anyhow, so that's sort of what was on my mind today. And I'll leave it here. Have a good one.